Today, we're going to tackle something that impacts pretty much every student out there, testing. But we're not just talking about grades. We are going to build a blueprint for a better, fairer system for how we do educational assessment. So, let's jump right in. Okay, let's be real. We've all been there, right? You get a test back, you look at the score, and it just doesn't seem to reflect what you actually know. It feels confusing, maybe even completely unfair. Well, that feeling, that's exactly why having a clear, ethical framework for assessment isn't just some abstract academic idea. It's absolutely essential.
So here's our game plan. We're going to build this blueprint piece by piece. We'll start with why we even need it, then we'll lay the foundation, design it with people in mind, find its moral compass, and finally bring it all together with integrity.
So, first things first, why do we even need this blueprint? Well, because without clear guiding principles, assessment can get really confusing for students. It can be unfair in how it's used, and sometimes it can even be straight up harmful to the learning process itself. The whole point here is to move way beyond that.
Every solid building needs a rock-solid foundation. And in ethical assessment, that foundation is built on 3 pillars. These are the absolute non-negotiables that make sure every test is technically sound and fair right from the get-go.
So, what are these 3 pillars? They are fairness, validity, and reliability. I want you to think of them like the main load-bearing walls of our structure. If you get even one of them wrong, the whole thing just comes crashing down. So yeah, they're pretty important. Let's take a closer look at each one. First up, we've got fairness. Think of it like a race. It's not enough for everyone to start at the same line. It's about making sure the track is clear for everyone and that they have the right gear. In testing, this means getting rid of any bias and providing reasonable accommodations for students who need them. It's all about giving everyone an equitable shot to show what they really know.
Next up is validity. Now, this one can sound a bit technical, but here's a really simple way to think about it. Are you using the right tool for the job? You wouldn't use a thermometer to measure how tall you are, right? It's the same idea. A valid test has to actually measure what it claims it's measuring.
And here is a perfect example of validity in practice. An ethical use, a quick, low-stakes quiz just to check if students are getting a new concept. The tool fits the job perfectly. But an ethical violation? Using that same simple quiz to decide who gets into college. That is a huge deal. Using a tool for something it was never designed for is a serious breach of this principle.
And our third pillar is reliability. This one is all about trust and consistency. Just imagine stepping on a bathroom scale that gives you 3 totally different weights in 3 minutes. You wouldn't trust it for a second, would you? Well, a reliable test is the same thing. The results have to be consistent, they have to be dependable, and free from some random, arbitrary judgment. Without reliability, a grade is basically meaningless.
Okay, so we've laid our technical foundation. Now let's move on to the next part of our blueprint, designing for people. This section is all about the student's experience and their fundamental rights in this whole process. This quote from assessment experts Black and William really gets to the heart of it. See, transparency isn't just about being honest. It's an incredibly powerful tool. It empowers students, helps them learn how to learn on their own, and it cuts down on all that stress and confusion that testing can cause.
And this is so crucial. As a learner, you have rights. You absolutely have the right to know why you're being tested, exactly what success looks like, how your results are going to be used, and what the feedback process is. The goal is to take all the mystery out of assessment.
Which brings us to another critical right, especially in our digital age. It's summed up perfectly right here. Your data is yours. The principle of confidentiality is more important now than it has ever been.
So, protecting that data means making sure it's only seen by people who are authorized to see it. It means it's only used for educational purposes, and that it's stored securely. In this era of AI-supported assessment, a data breach isn't just breaking a rule. It can cause real, genuine harm to a student's well-being.
Okay, so we have our foundation and our people-centered design. But what's the philosophy that holds it all together? Let's take a look at the moral compass of our blueprint, the fundamental why behind all of these rules.
At the very core, you've got 2 big principles. Beneficence, which just means to do good, and non-maleficence, which means, you guessed it, to do no harm. To put it simply, the main mission of any assessment should be to help students grow and to give them constructive feedback, not to punish or discourage them.
And this slide illustrates that difference so clearly. The goal is always to support learning.
Harmful practices like ranking students publicly, slapping labels on them, or using grades as a punishment, those things directly violate this core mission. Assessment should be a tool for support, not a weapon for humiliation.
But let's be real. A blueprint is only as good as the people who build with it, and that's where professional responsibility comes into play. Educators have a duty to uphold these principles, to be the architects of a fair system. That means keeping their integrity, resisting pressure to inflate grades, and always committing to learning and getting better at what they do.
All right, we have reached the final piece of our blueprint. We've laid the foundation, we've designed for people, we've set our moral compass, and now it all comes together under one final, overarching idea: building with integrity.
This quote, I think, just says it all. Following these principles isn't about just checking some boxes or following a technical manual. It is a deep moral commitment. It's a promise to prioritize fairness, to prioritize honesty, and most importantly, to prioritize the well-being of every single student.
And that leaves us with one final question to chew on. Now that we have the blueprint, how do we actually start building? What's just one small change we can push for to make assessment in our own communities more fair, more transparent, and more focused on what really truly matters: learning?